Hello, this is Sondra Oster Baras bringing a few words of Bible from the heart of Biblical Israel. This week's Torah portion is Mishpatim. Mishpatim is the Hebrew word for laws or statutes, and indeed there are a large number of laws in this Torah portion. Mostly laws having to do with what we'd call civil law, tort law, laws having to do with personal injury. What happens if the actions of somebody or somebody harms somebody else? What are the rules? How do judges rule on these kinds of situations? And in chapter 22, beginning verse 28, we have a series of situations dealing first with a bull and then with a pit. Actually, in Hebrew, the word for bull is a shor, and the word for the pit is a bore. And very often, when we would study this as kids, we would say, "Oh, the shore and the bore," you know. And anyway, but these are the situations that we're dealing with. So, in the case of a bull, what happens if a bull gores a man or a woman? Who is responsible? Now you might think, bulls, like, why do I care? I'm not running the bulls in Spain, so like, why am I dealing with bulls goring bulls? So the answer is, of course, that it's bull here is an example. Of course, in biblical times, bulls were very, very prevalent. It was part of daily life. But today we have automobiles, we have machinery. I'm sure we can think of a number of situations where a machinery of some kind will harm somebody, will kill somebody, will cause severe injury to somebody. To what extent is the owner of that machinery responsible? And that is exactly the same situation we're dealing with here. So if we have a bull who gores and murders, gores and causes the death of a human being, what do you do with the owner of the bull? And the rule is, if this bull has never ever harmed anyone in the past, then the owner of that bull is not responsible, because he could not possibly have known that this bull would be dangerous. However, if this bull has harmed somebody in the past, then if that bull kills somebody, then the owner of that bull is himself responsible. And this means we have here, there are actually two options. And one option is actually he himself needs to be put to death, but there is an option for ransom, that he can pay some kind of fee to redeem himself from that he will be put to death. And of course, everybody's going to want to redeem himself. But the reason we have as the first instance of punishment here is actually capital punishment, is a value-based statement. You deserve to be put to death because your irresponsibility caused the death of somebody else. But because we don't have here a situation of premeditated murder, but rather criminal negligence, okay, this is someone who wasn't careful enough with something he knew was very dangerous, then you're not going to put this person to death, but he will have to pay a price for his own life, so that he realizes what should have happened is he should have had to pay with his own life. The next situation is a pit, okay? If a person digs a pit, he's starting to build something. He's laying the foundation, and he starts building. And he's in the middle, and he leaves the open pit, and he walks away. And someone falls into that pit, and he's hurt, okay? What happens? And usually it's, the problem. What's the problem? What should he have done? He should have either fenced off the pit, or he should have covered it in some way so somebody couldn't hurt. So again, he was negligent. Now, if you think about this today, we have many laws today that deal with similar situations. If you have a swimming pool in your backyard, okay, many countries will have it as a law that you have to either cover the pool or fence it so that nobody can drown, kid or whatever, can't accidentally walk into the pool and drown. Now you can say, well, it's not my fault. They should have been careful when they're going around. But no, there is this idea that you need to make sure that your actions don't create a situation where someone can easily fall, hurt themselves, or even, God forbid, fall to their death. And so this is the same kind of situation here. But here he has to pay the damages. And again, it's not a question of something he knew. When you dig a pit, you know that it is dangerous, and therefore you have a responsibility to build this fence around it. Now, I think what come across here very, very strongly in both of these situations is that you can't say, not me. You can't say, well, it's not my fault what the bull did, or it's not my fault the guy wasn't looking where he was walking and fell into a pit. Okay? You can't say that because you have an overriding responsibility to keep people safe to the extent that you have the power to do so. Now, I would like to take this idea of responsibility, which is a very strong biblical theme. Human beings are responsible for their actions. And I would like to take this to another law that we see not here in the book of Exodus, but in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 21. We have here a situation, at the very beginning of chapter 21, we have a situation where a corpse is found out in the middle of nowhere in the country, in between two cities, okay? And the assumption here is that nobody knows who killed him. But behind that assumption is another assumption that says, if you find a corpse, it is very important to try to discover who is responsible and hold that person responsible. In this case, they have tried, and they can't figure out who's responsible. They certainly didn't know how to do fingerprint testing in those days, but whatever it is, there's no signs that leads them to the killer. Okay, what do? So the elders of the two closest cities measure the distance between this corpse and their cities, and the city that is closest to this corpse has to go through this entire ceremony. Has to do with breaking the neck of a calf, and I won't go into all the details. What is the essence of the ceremony? The essence of the ceremony is the declaration that these sages must make on behalf of the residents of their town as follows. And I'm reading now from Deuteronomy 21, verse 6. Then all the elders of the town nearest to the corpse shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the valley, and they shall make this declaration: our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it done. Absolve, O Lord, your people Israel, whom you redeemed, and do not let guilt for the blood of the innocent remain among your people Israel, and they will be absolved of your blood guilt. What is this talking about? These people didn't do anything. Why do they have to get involved in this? Because the assumption here is that someone is responsible. And if you cannot find the person who is responsible, then there's something wrong. And therefore something has to be done where you have to declare and swear to God that we were not involved. Our hands did not shed this blood. And then you must ask God to absolve your guilt. What guilt? What did you do? You did nothing. But maybe that's it. Maybe like the situation with the pit that you didn't cover. Maybe you didn't patrol your perimeter well enough. Maybe you weren't careful enough in routing out the criminals among you so that something like this didn't happen. Nobody's going to be punished over this because there's a ceremony and there's a declaration and there's a prayer, and the scripture promises your guilt will be absolved. But the assumption here is that someone is responsible. Someone is always responsible. And that is something that the Bible tells us that we need to also take to heart. All of us. It is not about looking at the other guy. What did you do? We have to look at ourselves. How can we take responsibilities for what we do and for what we have failed to do? And the point of this is not to sink into guilt. The point of this is to ensure that you will never be responsible for something terrible happening to somebody else. Have a wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom.
I hope you enjoyed that video, and we'd like to be sure you're getting all of our video content. So just click on the subscribe button below as well as on the notification bell, and that way you will have easy access to all our material. We look forward to staying in touch with you. God bless you, and have a wonderful day.